Jackson slammed a thick stack of papers onto the dining room table just after midnight. "Sign here, here, and here," he barked, tapping each page with an impatient finger. His voice was frigid, as if addressing a stranger, not Clare, his wife of 12 years. Clare looked up at him steadily. His hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, and a faint, unfamiliar perfume clung to his jacket. "Now, Clare," he snapped, thrusting a pen toward her. "I don't have all night." The dining room, once the cozy heart of their suburban Austin home, felt cold and sterile, more like an interrogation room. "You get nothing," he added with a cruel smirk. "No alimony, no house. You leave with exactly what you came in with." Clare took the pen without a word, signing each page methodically. Jackson watched her, clearly expecting tears, anger, some desperate plea. Instead, her calm seemed to rattle him. What he didn't know was that Clare had been preparing for this night for months. She'd seen the signs, late-night texts, changed passwords, mysterious trips. The lipstick on his shirt collar last April had only confirmed what she already knew. That night, she'd called her best friend Natalie, a financial advisor, and Ethan Parker, the sharpest divorce attorney in Austin. "You're making this too easy," Jackson said, gathering the signed pages with satisfaction. "I expected a fight." Clare smiled faintly, thinking of the evidence she'd carefully tucked away in a safety deposit box. "Why fight?" she said evenly. "You made your choice." Jackson faltered slightly but covered it quickly. "Sophia's different," he muttered. "She's ambitious, not stuck teaching third graders forever." Clare thought briefly of her students, the investments she had quietly made, and the future she had so carefully secured. "I hope she's everything you want," she said simply. Jackson ignored her, slipping the documents into his briefcase and pulling out his phone, no doubt texting Sophia about his supposed triumph. At the door, he turned back sharply. "Don't do anything stupid, Clare." "Jackson," she called softly. He stopped, irritation flaring. "What?" "You might want to read what you just had me sign." He scoffed. "I know what's in them. I wrote them." "Did you?" Clare asked, tilting her head slightly. "Or did Patrick draft them?" His face darkened. "How did you?" "Good night, Jackson," she said, turning away to make tea. The front door slammed moments later. Clare leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly, peace flooding through her. Jackson thought he'd outmaneuvered her. He had no idea he'd just signed away everything. Patrick, his expert friend, had made amateur mistakes. Ethan had spotted them instantly. Those papers weren't divorce papers at all. Clare quickly texted Natalie, "It's done." He took the bait. Then to Ethan, "Phase 2 starts now." By morning, Jackson would realize he had legally transferred all joint assets solely into Clare's name, along with a sworn admission of infidelity and financial misconduct. At 6:57 a.m., her phone buzzed violently on the porch table. Jackson's name flashed over and over. Missed calls. Frantic texts. "What did you do? These aren't right. Call me now." Clare sipped her coffee, letting the sunrise warm her face. At 8 o'clock sharp, Natalie arrived, laptop in hand. "How are you holding up?" she asked, eyes twinkling at the storm of notifications. "Better than Jackson, I think," Clare said, holding up the screen flooded with frantic messages. Natalie laughed. He already called Ethan's office. In a complete panic. At 8:30, the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. Jackson stood there, yesterday's rumpled clothes still clinging to him, rage and confusion battling on his face. "What the hell did you make me sign?" he demanded, shoving past her into the house. Clare stepped aside calmly. "Come in. Have some coffee." He stopped cold when he saw Natalie seated at the kitchen table, laptop open. "Who the hell are you?" "Natalie Foster," she said smoothly. "Senior paralegal at Parker & Associates." "Have a seat." Jackson paled. Parker & Associates. Ethan Parker's firm. He ignored the coffee, slamming the papers onto the table. "These aren't Patrick's documents. You switched them." "No," Clare corrected gently. "They're exactly the papers you handed me. You just didn't bother to read them. Too busy texting Sophia, maybe." Natalie flipped her laptop toward him. "Mr. Harris, why don't we go over exactly what you signed?" Natalie spoke evenly. "First, there's the transfer of all joint assets into Mrs. Harris' name, fully authorized by your signature on pages 3, 7, and 12. Additionally, you signed a sworn statement detailing your affair with Sophia Miller, complete with dates, locations, and financial records showing misuse of marital funds." Jackson collapsed into a chair, the color draining from his face. "This isn't legal," he muttered. "I'll fight it, with Patrick's help." I tilted my head slightly, feigning innocence. Your unlicensed golfing buddy who's currently under investigation for practicing law without a license. Good luck with that. You set me up, Jackson hissed, glaring at me. No, I said calmly. You set yourself up. I simply made sure everything was documented. Natalie slid a thick folder across the table. We also have evidence of your attempt to defraud Mrs. Harris by presenting falsified documents last night, fully recorded by the home security cameras installed 3 months ago. Jackson's head snapped up. What cameras? I gestured casually toward the tiny lens tucked above the kitchen cabinets. Amazing what you miss when you think you're untouchable. His voice cracked. Why are you doing this? For protection, I answered steadily. I gave you 12 years of my life, supporting your dreams, building a home, believing in our future, and you repaid me by trying to erase me like I never mattered. Natalie slid another stack of papers toward him. These are the real divorce papers, prepared by Parker and Associates. You'll find the terms significantly different from what you had in mind. Jackson stared at the documents, his hands trembling. I don't have to sign, he said weakly. True, I said, but then we'll proceed with fraud charges, and your buddy Patrick will face legal action as your co-conspirator. Your choice. You can't prove, he began. Natalie flipped her laptop around, showing screen after screen of evidence. We can. Surveillance footage, texts between you and Patrick, the falsified documents. Would you like to see the rest? Jackson slumped lower in his chair, realization crashing down on him. If this gets out, I'll lose my job, he muttered. You should have thought about that, Natalie said crisply, before trying to ambush your wife at midnight. I stood silently, watching the man who had once been so smug and self-assured now reduced to a defeated shell. You have 24 hours to review these documents with a licensed attorney, I said, standing taller. After that, we move forward with fraud charges. And Jackson? I added quietly. Next time you try to screw someone over, make sure they aren't smarter than you. Jackson gathered the papers with shaking hands. At the door, he paused, turning halfway back. Claire, save it. I cut him off sharply. Your 24 hours start now. The door slammed behind him. Natalie turned to me, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. Well, that went even better than expected. I sank into a chair, finally exhaling the breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Natalie placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. Jackson would be a fool not to sign. I picked up my silent phone. The last message from Jackson read simply, You've changed. No, I whispered, I just stopped letting you pretend I was less. Jackson signed the divorce papers exactly 23 hours and 12 minutes later. Ethan Parker called while I was grading papers in my classroom. He tried to negotiate, Ethan said, amusement clear, but once I reminded him about the footage of his midnight ambush, he signed. I glanced around the colorful classroom, children's artwork on the walls, a whiteboard full of bright equations. This life, this job he'd belittled, had given me more meaning than he ever had. What about Sophia? I asked. She was surprised, Ethan said dryly. Turns out Jackson's track record of infidelity goes back farther than she thought. She packed her things and left the firm this morning. That evening, Natalie arrived with a bottle of wine and a box of packing supplies. Did you hear about Patrick? She asked, wrapping a framed photo. The fake attorney? I asked. What now? The state bar's investigating him, she said, grinning. Apparently, you weren't his first victim, but you were the first to outsmart him. I settled onto the couch, swirling my wine thoughtfully. You know what's funny? Jackson always said I was terrible with details. That's why he thought I'd be just a teacher forever. Natalie raised her glass. To details, she said, smiling. I clinked my glass against hers. To details, I echoed, feeling a deep, earned satisfaction settle in my chest at last, but in the end, it was my attention to detail that brought him down. A week later, Claire received an unexpected email from Jackson's company. After a thorough review of the extensive evidence, including Jackson's attempt to fraudulently coerce Claire into signing away her rights, the board concluded that his position as chief financial officer was no longer tenable. Your detailed records have been invaluable, the HR director wrote. We are now conducting a comprehensive audit of Jackson's entire department. Claire forwarded the email to Ethan Parker, who replied simply, sometimes the best revenge is simply being thorough. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Claire kept the suburban Austin home, half of Jackson's pension, and, most importantly, her dignity. Jackson, now disgraced, moved to a smaller city to take a job at a lesser-known firm, his once polished reputation in ruins. Sophia reached out once, trying to explain. Claire responded succinctly, "The security footage showed your side clearly enough." Sophia never contacted her again. Exactly 1 year after that tense night, Claire sat at the same kitchen table, but now the home was truly hers, redecorated to reflect her tastes, not Jackson's pretentious ones. That evening, Natalie arrived for dinner, carrying a small, gift-wrapped box. "Happy Independence Day," Natalie said, smiling. Inside was a framed photo, a still from the security footage, Jackson confidently pushing fraudulent papers across the table, unaware he was documenting his own downfall. "A reminder," Natalie said with a grin, "that sometimes the best offense is letting your opponent believe they're winning." Claire smiled, hanging the photo in her new home office beside her teaching certificates and a handwritten note from a former student. "Thank you for believing in me." It was a daily reminder that strength doesn't always roar, it often comes in quiet, steady resilience. A week later, Claire ran into Jackson's mother at the grocery store. The woman stiffened at first, but Claire called out warmly, "Hi, Margaret." Margaret paused, then replied stiffly, "I heard you received a promotion, head of elementary curriculum now?" "Yes," Claire said with an easy smile. "Turns out, attention to detail is valued in education after all." Margaret hesitated, then softened. "Jackson, he's not doing well. Sophia left him for someone more successful." "That's unfortunate," Claire said sincerely. "I hope he learned something from it." As Claire walked away, she overheard Margaret whisper, "We all underestimated you." Later that evening, Claire received a text from an unfamiliar number. It was Jackson. "I'm sorry," the message read. "I should have appreciated what I had." Claire stared at it for a moment, remembering the man who had once believed he could strip her of everything she valued. Calmly, she typed, "Thank you for the apology, but you were wrong. I didn't end up with nothing. I got myself back." She blocked his number, poured herself a glass of wine, and stepped onto the back porch to watch the Texas sunset light the sky in brilliant colors. She smiled to herself, feeling at peace. Sometimes, victory isn't loud or messy. Sometimes, it's a quiet reclaiming, built through preparation, patience, and unwavering self-respect. Jackson's greatest mistake was never his infidelity, or even his fraud. It was underestimating Claire, and overlooking the quiet power she held all along. And then your call to action to readers. If my story resonated with you, I invite you to stand with me. Let others know they're not alone in facing betrayal, injustice, or underestimation. Share your experiences, tell me which part of Claire's journey touched you most, or offer advice born from your own trials. Your voice matters. Every story of resilience builds a stronger community, proof that we can survive heartbreak, rise from betrayal, and reclaim our worth. Did you see yourself in Claire's struggle? Did you silently cheer when Jackson realized he was outmatched? Maybe you found comfort in knowing you are not alone. Please, share your thoughts below. Let's strengthen one another with truth, encouragement, and hard-won wisdom. If Claire's journey taught us anything, it's this. Pay attention. Trust your instincts. Never let someone else's underestimation define your future. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's detailed notes, a calm voice, a well-timed step back. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is simply to refuse to crumble.